Well, what we have today is a Mortal Kombat 2 soundboard, and a friend of mine had this in his machine. The setup was working fine, mainboard, soundboard, nothing was wrong, except he couldn't get his low attacks to work. You know, player 1, low punch, low kick, player 2, low punch, low kick. The low attacks were not working, and he was trying to troubleshoot that by just grounding the pins on the main board to see if he ever got the low attacks to function on the connector on the main board that provide those inputs. And he ended up finding his problem. I'm not sure really what it was, but he said he found the problem, but in the process of troubleshooting, after he found the problem, he let go of the ground wire and it accidentally touched something on the soundboard, and then all of a sudden his entire game shut off. Mainboard shut off, soundboard shut off, power supply went into protection mode, so something got shorted. Now if he disconnects the power connector off of the soundboard here, the main board would boot up again. Power supply functions, main board boots, game plays and operates as normal, except as soon as he plugs the soundboard back in, it all shuts off once again. So the question is, what on the soundboard is shorted? Now obviously something on the soundboard is completely dead shorted, enough to kill the power supply and put it into protection mode. So you've got a situation like this, you got to think, okay, how can I figure this out? How can I determine what is shorted and how to fix it? Well, the first thing you'd want to do is go into your grab your meter here and go to ohms, and you're going to want to ohm out each of the power pins to ground. So on this 9-pin connector, the middle pin here, pin 5, is not being used. We have pin 1, 2, 3, 4, nothing in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So on this setup here, pin 7 and 9 are ground. So we can take one lead here, preferably negative, and put it on pin 9 or pin 7, but we'll just go to pin 9. And pin 5 is not used, so pin 6 is going to be our negative 5. So negative 5 to ground is 600 ohms, which is totally fine. That's not shorted. Pin 7 is ground, so there's continuity there. Pin 8 is positive 5, and we also get 600 ohms or so. That's totally fine, not shorted. And then we have pin 3 is 12 volts, and that's climbing to 2.6K. That's not a short. Pin 4 is also 12 volts, reads the same. Well, no, actually it's in the mega ohm, which is fine. Pin 3 again, yeah, it's mega ohm also. I don't know, did I say K? I meant mega ohm. And then pin 1 and 2 are, I forget what pin 1 and 2 are, quite honestly, but it doesn't matter. Neither one of those are shorted either. So none of our pins are shorted to ground. So why is the main board and the power supply shutting off if nothing is shorted? So now, since none of those are reading to ground, shorted I should say, we got to go across the pins for power. So you'd go from 12 to 5, 12 to negative 5, negative 5 to 5. Since none of those power rails are shorted to ground, they could be shorted to each other. So we'll start with the 12 volt line. So 12 volts to 5 volts is not shorted. 12 volts to negative 5 is not shorted. Negative 5 to positive 5, 25 ohms. So 25 ohms between negative 5 and 5. So our negative 5 rail and our positive 5 rail is shorted together. Now, how can we find what is causing that? Well, in this case, a visual inspection is key, and what you always want to do first is a good visual inspection, because when you have something like that happens, something shorted, hard shorted, there's almost always going to be a visual clue. So I gave this a good look over, and everything looked okay except our op amp here. This op amp here in this U37 location. So this is our main amplifier. Then there's an operational amplifier in the U37 location. So if we zoom in on our operational amplifier, I don't know how close I can get here. There is a hole in the chip. You can see that it's burned its way through, sizzled the plastic and the package, and there's a hole in the chip right there on that leg. So what we can do, since we know that chip is a goner, that chip is an absolute goner, what we can do is just cut that leg like so. So that leg is now cut, as we can see, right there. And who wants to take bets here on whether or not our short is gone. So we'll go to +5 and -5 and open. If we go to -5 and touch this pin, that's a -5 pin. And if I go to my +5, we no longer have continuity. We're going through capacitors, which is why it's freaking out like that. But our -5 rail and +5 rail is no longer shorted. As you can see, we're reading 20 megohm. So, yep, our operational amplifier has internally shorted. And now it's going to come down to removing it and installing a socket and replacing it. Now, I'm pretty sure that I have extra of those in this bin of ICs. That's not it. That's not it. I'm pretty sure I have. They may not be in this one. I think they might be in one of these. Is it miscellaneous parts? Nope, that's connectors. If I was any good, I would have already had all this on hand here. Or at the ready, I should say. I have... Oh, here it is. I have a container here marked soundboards. So we can... Those are amplifiers. More amplifiers. And I have a cornucopia of these op amps. There's one there. That's a DAC chip, digital analog converter. There's another op amp. There's another op amp. There's another op amp. There's 5 of them. I got 5 op amps in there, so we can grab any one of these at random, which will grab the one with the least amount of legs that need repaired or bent or work, I should say. These all got pulled from boards, bad boards over the years. Any of these have anything? We'll go with this one. All right. Now, what's going to be the easiest way to do this is we're going to just cut this other chip. This chip is dead. There's no saving it. So we're just going to cut it out. To make it easier to remove, we are going to simply just cut the legs. I need a pair of cutters without a broken bit. Now obviously, if you had a different situation where you suspected this op amp of being faulty, you wouldn't just go cutting it out like this. You'd remove it properly with a desoldering station and things like that. But since we know that this is a goner, we're just going to cut this out of here and pull the legs out one by one with the iron and make it a lot easier on ourselves. So done. So now we can extract these legs fairly easily. Should be able to just heat this here. Actually, we'll grab this first, heat this up. And there's one. I need to get a different, yeah, here we go. Different pair of tweezers here. 2, 3, a 3. How many pins does it take to get to the center of a Midway Mortal Kombat 2 soundboard? The world may never know. You see how easy this is. With the right tools and stuff, it's pretty easy. We'll have this thing changed lickety-split. There you go. All the pins are out. What'd that take? Less than a minute? So we will get rid of these pins. And let's grab the desoldering braid. And we'll go about this the caveman style of just using the braid, because I still don't have a decent desoldering station. I'm gonna turn fan on here. And I'm going to use actually the smaller braid, because the smaller braid tends to get this solder out of here a bit better and easier than that thicker braid. Sometimes you got to go on the backside here and do it, try to get some of this out of there from the backside too, so no big deal, we'll get it. Yeah, we'll get those from the other side. Yeah, I like this smaller braid a lot better when trying to get these, open up these holes, because it just gets down inside the joint or the via much better than that thicker stuff. You know, so you go through a little bit, you go through this a little bit faster, but it works a little bit better than the thicker stuff. And you want to get the braid that has the flux in it. See, I mean, that's quick and easy, down and dirty. Almost better and easier than using a desoldering station. But this is what that stuff is. It's Kimtronics size 0.030, and yeah, this is what I recommend and what I use. So Kimtronics, and this is the thicker stuff, number 4, 10, or it's 0.100. This is number 1. So there you go. Get that on Amazon, as much as you want, as much as you need. But now we're going to try to clear up those last two from the back side here. And then sometimes adding fresh solder helps as well, because you can also take the very corner and just put it in the hole and try and do it this way. And there you go. Open right up. Okay. There you go. Nice and easy. All those holes are open. No damage. Let's clean it up a little bit with a little alcohol. Don't pay attention to that alky. He can't even hold a gun, much less shoot it. Nice. That is good. Okay. So now we can grab a socket. Hopefully I have the right size here. I just may. And then again, I just may not. Let's see here. Oh, look at that. Okay. Let's drop this puppy in here. Oh. Nice. There you have it. We've got our replacement one here. We're going to install it. Let's fix some of these legs here first. Okay. Going to make sure we put it in the correct way. There we go. And that is in there. All right. Voila. I only got one of those sockets left. I need to order some more here. Okay. So it's in there correctly, in the right way. And yeah, all good. So now we'll hold it in place, and we want to make sure all of our pins are through, nothing got folded over and bent, and they're not. The last thing you want is to solder in all the pins and you get to the last one and it's folded over on the underside. Like, oh, you got to pull it back out again. So we'll just get a little solder on the tip here, and while we're holding it with our finger, we'll just, bloop, there's one corner, and there's the other. And now you don't have to use that Smurf poop or whatever people refer to that stuff as, the rapid tack, that tack stuff, because it's not necessary. Just hold it in place and do that method. So we'll go ahead and get this soldered in. And I need to contact the owner of this and ask them if they want me to do a recap on this board, because it's still got the original caps on it. I do happen to have a cap kit on hand, but it's going to be up to them if they want me to cap it. I'm not just going to go ahead and do it without, you know, their approval or acknowledgement of wanting to have it done. So, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to go ahead and make the repair and then call it good. So there we have it. Nice down and dirty repair. So now it's time to get this hooked back up to the main board, get it on the test rig, fire it up, and see if that still works. Now, of course, we need to verify, now that we have that replaced, that we are still not shorted. So again, we'll go across pins, the -5 and the +5, and make sure that we don't have that 25 ohms still. So here's our 5 pin and our -5 pin, and we get 600K, 500K, 4K. Yeah, so I'll say at least our short's gone. Will it work? I don't know if it'll work, but I can say our short is gone. So let's get this all hooked back up here, and for the sake of demonstration purposes, here is the main board. Now, I already did test the main board, and yes, it does work perfectly. So we'll go ahead and plug in our power cable. We'll go ahead and plug in our ribbon cable, and pin 20 is the red wire, so we have to go around this way. Has to be hooked up pin 1 to pin 1 and pin 20 to pin 20. If you have them backwards, you won't have any data or audio, proper audio. So there it is. So let's get this on the test rig here. I'll have to cut away, come back with it all hooked up, and we'll see what happens. Okay, main board's on the test rig. Got our monitor over here. The soundboard's just kind of hanging here because I don't really have anywhere to put it up on top of here. I don't want something to short out or anything. It'll be fine just to hang here on the test bench or like that. So, okay, will we have audio and will the board boot with the soundboard connected? So let's find out. 1, 2, 3. Yes. But we don't have a test tone. The light is on, but we don't have a test tone, and we have what sounds like a digital to analog converter. When you hear all this, the pop, pop, pop of the ROMs being checked, that's an issue with the digital to analog converter. We did not get a test tone, and we don't have any audio, we just have the noises. Oh, what was that? Why did we have so many credits being... Oh, because they've got the dip switches all out of whack. There's like 14 credits with 2 credit pushes. Let's reset this and try again here. Yeah, we're getting the LED and everything seems okay, but I wonder if there's some other issue. Obviously our DAC is working, I'm sorry, our op amp is working and our main amp is working. But I'm wondering if the U17 is bad because that's what generates the test tone. And we don't have any game sounds or audio. There we go, now we got normal credits. So, I wonder what the volume level is set to. Yeah, it's more than enough to hear things. So, okay. So let's get back on this to see what we can figure out. Alright, so I found the problem and this now works exactly as it's supposed to with no issues. I was under the impression that those noises you heard and the different artifact sounds and the fact that it was doing the popping every time the ROM would come on, pop, 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 and I've had that be a DAC in the past. In my experience, when you hear that, it's either the op amp or the digital to analog converter. It's one of those 2 chips. So I took the original DAC out and put a replacement in there, and it didn't fix the problem. As a matter of fact, it was identical to the same issue that it was having. So I knew that wasn't the problem, so I put the original DAC back in. I thought, okay, knowing that it's usually almost always a DAC or an op amp that causes that problem, I know I put a replacement op amp in there, and that solved our issue of it shorting the board out. However, I was skeptical of whether or not that op amp was actually good. So I took that op amp back out. This is the one that I installed just a few moments ago, and I put a different one in there from my stash of like, I don't know, half a dozen that I've got. After putting a different op amp in there, it works. So this op amp that I grabbed at random out of the board, or out of the, I'm sorry, this op amp that I grabbed out of that container that I wanted to use because it had the most straight legs of all the different ones I had in that bin was bad. So that needs to go in the garbage. We got a good one in there now with the original DAC in there in a socket, and we'll just let this finish here. We're back to good. So we have a repaired Mortal Kombat 2 soundboard. All it needed was a replacement op amp. So, yep. And in the future, if the DAC goes out, it's in a socket, easily able to change that out now. So, exploded op amp, replaced it, brought this back to life. So, I'll let the owner of this know. He can decide and let me know if he wants me to do the cap kit, which I'm sure he will. I got one on hand, and no need to show that. I have a video, dedicated video on how to do these cap kits on these Midway soundboards. I'll link that down below. But otherwise, yeah, hopefully you learned something. If you ever hear, go back and listen to that. If you ever hear that on your MK2, MK1, NBA Jam, Revolution X, Strike Force, there's a couple of other ones, then you know it's either going to be the digital to analog converter or the op amp. Now, of course, they're in different locations on... actually, you know what? I don't think the MK1 and the Y unit and T units have a DAC. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've worked on one, but if they do, it's either going to be a DAC or an op amp. Now, the MK1, NBA Jam, Strike Force, I think some of those other boards have 2 op amps. I think MK2 only has 1, but the Y unit and T unit soundboards have 2 op amps. And they're both the same. They're both a what is it? TL084 Charlie November, TL084CN. The Y units and T units have 2 of those op amps, but I think this one just has the 1. Regardless, it's now fixed, just had the bad op amp, so that's about it. I appreciate you watching. Hopefully you learned something. Make sure you comment down below and check out the description for the video on how to recap these, and Stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.